Hi everyone, Francis Walshe here with the Personal Finance Diaries, and today we're going to be looking at National Debt Relief and doing a full review of their main service, which is debt settlement. So debt settlement is essentially an option that's open to you if you've got yourself into a bit of financial difficulty. If you're struggling to keep up with your bills, if your cash flow has got to the point where you're further and further away from meeting your obligations with your income every month, and it's time to look at some options. Debt settlement is one of those options. So essentially, and there's a little bit more to this, but I'll cover that in detail in the next slide. But essentially what it is negotiating with creditors to reduce the amount that you owe. So you will approach the creditor, your creditors, whether it's your credit card company, a bank to whom you own a personal loan, creditors in relation to medical debts, and you negotiate whether it's a lower interest rate or maybe it's a better payment schedule or a reduction in your principal. You'll essentially negotiate better payment terms that will allow you to meet those obligations. This is typically done in relation to unsecured debt. So as I was saying, credit cards, personal loans, medical bills. It doesn't really work if your main issue is with secured debt. So that's debt with kind of collateral against it. So your mortgage or your car loan or that kind of thing. It's mainly for unsecured debt. So then the National Debt Relief process, how National Debt Relief approaches debt settlement. So as I was saying, it's basically based on negotiation with your creditors, but it's a little bit more complex than that. So what happens is once you enter an agreement with National Debt Relief, you stop paying your monthly bills to your creditors and you start paying monthly installments into an escrow account. Now, this is an FDIC insured escrow account. It's set up for you by National Debt Relief, but the way the escrow account works is it's essentially a third-party account that you don't have access to. Once you put the funds in, they can't be accessed by you or by National Debt Relief. Once that money is there, National Debt Relief will start negotiating with your creditors on your behalf to try to come up with a more favourable repayment plan for you. And so as the months pass and there's more money going into your escrow account, this becomes a more appealing prospect to your creditors. Ideally, the idea would be that once your creditors stop receiving money that they were getting from your bill payments, they will start viewing this as a more viable alternative. So the big pro of this is that you avoid bankruptcy. So bankruptcy is probably what most of you would think of when it comes to financial restructuring. It's the step that many people have to end up taking when they get into too much debt and they can't manage it. But obviously it's very destructive. So depending on which bankruptcy you take, you could end up with Chapter 7 where you have to liquidate your assets, or you could end up with Chapter 13 where you're stuck with a monthly repayment plan that you have to carry out over 3 to 5 years. And it's on your credit report for up to 10 years and all of that. It's a very big step, and this is an alternative to it. Now, the big drawback of debt settlement is that you're missing payments all the time while say National Debt Relief or whoever is negotiating with your creditors. So while you're missing payments, your credit score is getting hit all the time for every payment that you're missing. And the other big drawback in relation to bankruptcy, and this is kind of related, is that creditors are under no obligation to take you seriously. If you approach them with a settlement proposal, they can just say no. They can continue to pursue you and to file lawsuits and whatever else. And if ultimately the process doesn't work, you'll be right back at square one in a few years' time with just a very damaged credit score. So bankruptcy, obviously, there is the force of law behind it. As soon as you file for bankruptcy, you get the automatic stay, which protects you from creditor actions. You don't get this with debt settlement. But essentially, it is an option that is less disruptive to your personal finances than bankruptcy. And it's more suitable maybe to people who aren't so far gone that bankruptcy is an inevitability. So what is there to like about National Debt Relief? Well, the first thing is free consultations. This is crucial. If you're already in financial difficulty, the last thing you want is to be paying for someone to advise you on it. National Debt Relief will provide you with a free phone call to talk through your circumstances and to discuss whether debt settlement is the best option for you or whether maybe something else might be more appropriate. Like I was saying, bankruptcy if your situation is very serious, or maybe something like credit counselling if it's not that serious. And then in terms of the fee structure from there, I'll cover this in a little bit more detail later on in the video, but basically you don't pay any settlement fees until NDR succeeds in getting you a settlement. Now, this is a legal requirement. Debt settlement firms are not they are not legally allowed to charge settlement fees up front. If you do come across a provider that does, look for this. It's time to start running. Another big advantage of National Debt Relief is that they have a lot of trust. They've got a very good reputation. They're accredited by the American Association for Debt Resolution and the Better Business Bureau. And if you look at their Trustpilot and Google reviews, there are a huge amount of positive reviews. I think they have a 4.7 out of 5 rating on Trustpilot and a 4.6 out of 5 on Google, and that's based on tens of thousands of reviews in each case. So there's a lot to like about that. And this is something that I think is actually a real differentiator for National Debt Review, is that they really start, they help people who are not huge clients in terms of the amount of money involved. So they start with people who have as little as $7,500 in debt. A lot of competitors won't even look at you unless you have $20,000 in debt. And this, to me, this is something I like, because I feel like a lot more people nowadays are getting into debt with smaller incomes. And look, if you have a small income and you are $7,500 in debt, that's potentially a very big problem. So I do like that they do take this inclusive approach. Now, what are the drawbacks? So this first one, the impact on your credit score, this is a quibble really with debt settlement as a whole. It's not an issue with National Debt Relief specifically, but it does, as I kind of referred to earlier, it does have a big impact on your credit score, because the system requires you to miss payments kind of on purpose. So when you do this, it's just going to have a big impact on your credit report. There's no way around it. So that's the first and kind of the most obvious one. Then it's a slow and uncertain process. As I was saying, again, there's no legal obligation on creditors to play ball with you here. They can just wait it out. They can continue to kind of put the squeeze on you for the money you owe. Typically, this doesn't happen. I know on National Debt Relief's website, they indicate that most clients will reach a settlement within 2 to 4 years. So obviously, and I mean, the Google and Trustpilot reviews would also be an indicator that it's not something that happens in every case, but it is a possibility. They can't give you a guarantee of success, and even if you do succeed, you can be waiting a few years to reach that settlement. So that's another factor to keep in mind. And then it is only kind of suitable really for certain types of unsecured debts. It won't work for mortgages, won't work for car loans, and then also the company doesn't really help with tax debts, child support, and I think other certain forms of student loans as well aren't recoverable under this system. So the payment structure that National Debt Relief works with, if, as I was saying, it's a success fee, so you only pay the main settlement fee if you actually receive a settlement. That is up to 25% of your enrolled debt. So the overall amount of debt that you come to the company with, it's 25% of that amount once you reach your settlement. On top of that, there's a $9 one-time setup fee, and then a $9.85 monthly maintenance fee for the escrow account. So the $9.85 fee, that's monthly from kind of when the escrow account is set up. So that can add up to maybe a few hundred over the course of the arrangement you have with NDR, but overall, the real money is only going to be paid when you reach your settlement. And so then alternatives to debt settlement. These will kind of depend really mainly on the severity of your situation. So as I was saying, debt settlement is kind of more for people who are they're at the upper end in terms of seriousness, but just not quite as bad as bankruptcy. So say the first option that we're looking at here, say, is debt consolidation. This would kind of be down the scale a little bit from debt settlement, because you need a good credit score to get a debt consolidation loan. Essentially how this works is if you have several items of unsecured credit going out of your account every month, if you've got multiple credit card bills, personal loans, that kind of thing, you take out a debt consolidation loan in order to consolidate all those debts into a single monthly payment, typically with a lower interest rate. This is a good way to address high interest rates if you have them. But as I was saying, you need a good credit score to access this option, so it's not really available to everyone. Then bankruptcy, as I covered it in a little bit of detail earlier, this is kind of your last chance saloon in terms of financial restructuring options. It's obviously very disruptive in terms of your personal finances, but it can dig you out of a very deep hole. If you don't have any other options, this is kind of, it is a good option to have, because it can stop your creditors from hounding you and get you back on a kind of a financial and even financial footing after a few years. Then credit counseling. So this is kind of, if you're not really in very deep trouble with finances yet, this is kind of a first step that you might take. Essentially, it's just a lot of non-profits will provide this service either for free or for, quite affordably. And essentially, it's just sitting down with an expert to look at your situation and see why your outflows are bigger than your inflows, and see what might be able to be done about it. So as you might imagine, this is only going to kind of work in less advanced cases, but at the end of the day, less advanced cases become more advanced cases pretty easily. So if you're in the early stages of financial difficulty, this is definitely something I would recommend considering. And then the last option is kind of an interesting one in DIY negotiations. So this is kind of like debt settlement, but you just don't involve the likes of national debt relief. You just kind of go about it by yourself. Try and phone up creditors and see what you can negotiate in terms of lower interest rates, better payment schedules, that kind of thing. It obviously has the advantage that there is no formal situation in place that will impact your credit report, and also that there's no fee to be paid to the service provider. So if you're the kind of person you think you might be able to get a result for yourself by doing this, by all means give it a try, but there's just no guarantee, I think, that creditors will play ball with you. So overall, is national debt relief worth it? I think they are. I think they provide a great service. I think they can help. They have helped a lot of people get out of financial debt and danger, and they could do the same for you. I just think the main piece of advice I would give is that if you have been missing payments for a while, you need to do something. So go for your free initial consultation with National Debt Relief. Look into the other options I've discussed and kind of sit down, discuss it with the people you need to discuss it with, and figure out which option works best for you. But the worst thing you can do is to just sit in your hands and do nothing. If you're starting to get into deep water financially, you need to make sure you're doing everything you can to get out of it. The longer you leave it, the worse it will get. And there's no shame in asking for help. I think that's a mindset that a lot of people get into, and that really causes a lot of harm, because, as I said, these are the kinds of things that just get worse over time. In summation, I would recommend National Debt Relief. Go for your free initial consultation, see what they have to say, and see what they might be able to do for you. That's all from me, and I'll see you in the next video.